I'm Jason Cook. With over 20 years of experience as a professional trainer, coach, and clinician in the equine industry, I've had the privilege of dedicating thousands of hours to perfecting my craft. Now I'm excited to share my expertise with you through this podcast. We will explore some of my past experiences as well as those of other individuals to provide you with a wealth of knowledge and insights to enhance your journey. Whether you are a novice or an experienced horseman, this podcast will offer valuable perspectives to help you achieve success. Today, I'm up here at Johnie Clem's training facility that he trains at.
Blue Diamond?
Blue Diamond.
Yeah, Blue Diamond Equestrian Center.
Okay. And we have Johnie Clem, and then I've called Jordan, a good friend of mine, and another trainer. But today, we're going to kind of tag team Johnie here. And I know there's a lot about, I've known Johnie since probably around 2000, and I'm guessing around 2002 or 3-ish. Somewhere around in there, I met Johnie. He was training cutting horses, and I went to work for him starting colts then. So that's the first I knew of Johnie Clem and got introduced. But there's a lot about him that I don't know, and I haven't heard his story per se from his past. And so we're going to go back, and it's going to be interesting. We're going to go back to the very beginning, to his childhood, and we're going to hear all about that, and there'll be some stuff you guys can get from all of it. And I know he's told his story at some speaking events in the past, I know. Mm-hmm. And I had never attended one of them, so I don't know anything about any of that.
Yeah.
All I know is you used to be a bull rider, and I don't hold it against you. And then when I met you, you were a cutting horse trainer. Then you got into EXCA and done real well at that. And so let's start off. Where were you born, and where'd you start off your journey?
So I was born in Albuquerque, New Mexico. My mom was 16 years old when she had me and had gone with my dad at that time. They ended up in Albuquerque, and she had me there shortly after my dad had left. And then Mom had come home to live with her folks. So, in Joplin.
Joplin, yeah. Okay.
So I grew up basically in Joplin.
Uh-huh.
And I've lived probably 10 or 15 years in Texas, apprenticing under different guys. And since that time, I've had a great career in that I've been to Australia 4 times, done clinics there. I have been to Austria and spent 3 weeks tuning horses for the European Nationals. I have lived in Italy for 6 months and trained horses there. I trained horses for Joe Montana, the football player, and lived on his ranch in California for about 2.5 years. And so it's just been a really good career in I couldn't have paid for all of that, mm-hmm. the tickets to get there and the living expenses and all that. Mm-hmm. So I've got to do a lot of things that were given to me. Mm-hmm. So
I don't really think anything was given to you. I know you've not had a silver spoon in your life at any point in time.
Right.
And so on your start, I mean, you had a pretty rough start growing up, correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So just to throw it out there, I was sexually abused when I was about 4 or 5 years old. Made it through that, and then growing up, when I got to be a teenager, I made a lot of bad choices because of that sexual abuse. And so now I've got, God's taking care of me. He's taken care of me my whole life.
Yes, sir.
And watched over me. So,
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I knew you had some experiences in your past that were not very good. And the thing about, some of us, I know Jordan, he grew up and he's got a great family.
Yeah.
His dad, Chris, and he grew up, and when I met Jordan, he started into the little C-Tech rodeos and stuff, and went to a lot of things and a lot of family support. And what I've always, and that's great, and I think people who get that, it's great. But I think from what I've always noticed, you come on your journey, and there was no one holding your hand.
Yeah.
It had to be you stepping up, and I learned a lot of that from you, and always respected that and admired that in you because it wasn't like you had a whole supporting cast.
Yeah. I had 3 stepfathers growing up, 3 different stepfathers growing up, and 1 or 2 guys that just lived with my mother. And that kind of made it hard growing up. But like I said, I feel like God's had my hand and led me through all that.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And so when did you get into bull riding? Are you, I'm going to ask, are you an adrenaline junkie?
Well, I don't know. I don't know about that, but I started riding bulls when I was about 14 years old. And I rode for about 13 years. So.
And this is pre-PBR and all that.
Yeah.
And before horses, you were into bulls.
Yeah. So I was riding bulls, and when say riding bulls, I got in with a group of guys that were going to 5-6 rodeos a week. So I was getting on 5 to 6 bulls a week riding, and so you were out there, and it wasn't at a professional level, but it would have been at a professional level. Mm-hmm. So you think back. I talk a lot of times to a friend of mine, and we think back, and you just don't know. You just don't know what you're going through at the time is going to end. And I never thought bull riding would end. So that's just kind of going through life.
Mm-hmm. So you went from bull riding 13 years. So what are we looking at? Late 20s now? Yeah.
I was probably, by the time I quit, I was 27, 28, something like that, I think. Uh-huh. And crazy thing is I took a job for CIT Financial Services. And so I worked in their office at CIT, then went into a bank, United Missouri Bank in Springfield. Mm-hmm. And I was married then, super nice lady. And I've got 2 daughters from her, and then 1 more from another lady. Mm-hmm. So I'm so proud of my kids. They've grown up and they're in their 40s now.
Yeah.
And all of them doing good. My oldest daughter, Justina, she's in Defiance, Ohio, and she and her husband run a church there in Defiance, Ohio.
Okay.
My middle daughter lives right down here at Highlandville, and her husband, they're doing everything. I mean, they have an auction company. They have Dusty has a construction company, and they're doing a little bit of everything. So they're making a great living, and I got to tell you, when I went through the brain cancer deal, Jackie, my middle daughter, she stepped up, come up, hauled me around. She, anytime I was needing to go to chemo or something like that, so she helped quite a bit.
Mm-hmm. And then you have
I've got a younger daughter, Logan.
Yes.
And she's going to Arkansas right now.
Oh, she is?
Uh-huh. Yeah, she's in college in Arkansas.
Okay. Yeah, and I think she's a year older than my oldest daughter.
Yeah, I think so.
I think so. Yeah. So you ended bull riding. You're in your mid to upper 20s, and you're working for this financial deal. So where does the turn take into horses, and how does that get started? Because I don't know.
Right. So I'm sitting there at the bank at the big desk, suit and tie, if you can imagine that.
I can't.
So I'm sitting there at that desk every day, hating sitting there at the desk, and I had a horse when I was a kid, 14 years old or so, about the same time as I was riding bulls, and I'd ride that horse bareback through the neighborhood. I lived in a good neighborhood that we all jump on horses and go riding. And so that's basically where I got my start riding horses. And then when I really got to hating my job and not happy, and I took a job in Claremore, Oklahoma. At that time I was married, and we had 2 kids, and Justina and Jackie, and I took a job in Claremore, Oklahoma, and left a banking job and I cleaned stalls half a day and broke colts half a day. So that's how I got into horses.
And where was this at?
Claremore, Oklahoma.
Claremore.
Yeah,
Okay.
we moved down there, lived in a mobile home, and go to work every day, cleaning stalls. They had several horses. Kiska Ranch was the name of that place.
And starting colts half a day.
Starting colts half a day.
So you've been a bull rider, so you'll get on anything.
Yeah.
I know a few.
Yeah.
And so, where did the knowledge or the thought of, hey, how do I go about doing this, other than the fact that I'm brave, I can get on? Where did that start? Because back then we didn't have the YouTube.
Right.
We didn't have probably bunch of VHS tapes either.
Yeah.
Or any subscription channels or anything to get information from.
Yeah.
So how do you go about that?
Well, there was no knowledge.
Right. Trial by fire.
Yeah. Exactly. You're going to get on, you and the guy that run that ranch, the manager of that ranch was a guy named Eddie Heston. And Eddie was a rough old guy and get on kind of deal. And so there really wasn't any knowledge there, and I'm glad that there's no video of that. So we can't look back and see what, but I see that now, right? I see that in a lot of riders now. I've seen it just a few days ago, and people doing, because they don't have knowledge, I see people doing things that is not good for a horse. Mm-hmm. And you don't have to beat them horses. You don't have to, jack them around. You can ask them and get a big result if you listen for the answer.
And there's a lot of information out there now.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
I mean, there really is. If you can't find it, you're not looking.
Right. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
And if you find somebody that's still riding like that, or a young guy that's riding like that, it's because he ain't asked. Mm-hmm. I help anybody I can, young guys, right? Mm-hmm. I help anybody I can. They come to me and ask me something, but I'm pretty stingy with knowledge. Mm-hmm. Do you deserve it? Mm-hmm. I'm talking to you. I can tell in a heartbeat whether you're really serious about asking me, or you just want to ask me so you can tell me. Because you get a lot of guys wanting to tell you their experience and what they do. I've had that 1,000 times. Somebody asked me, well, what do you do for this? And then about 2 sentences in, they cut you off and they start telling you, well, this is what I do.
And so what's your response? What's your response? Because
I just let them go.
You're going to give everybody the secret, aren't you, Jason?
I'm going to give them the secret. So I learned this from you a long time ago.
And I'll never forget it either, because you told me this.
Yeah. And so I said, I learned something from old Johnny. He said people will do what you just said there.
Yeah.
They'll say, hey, how do I get this horse to spin better?
Yeah.
or whatever it might be. And you'll
Right.
go to telling them, and 2 sentences in, they'll go to telling you everything they're doing.
Yeah.
And you told me, you said, you know what I tell them? And this is so cordial and against my nature, but said, looks like you got it going your way.
That's exactly right.
And if I was ever riding around you, and at our barn, and Jordan's picked up on it too.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
When
not,
you hear that, you stop and you're like, okay, what am I doing wrong? tell me here.
well, that's the easy way, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, you can just listen to that for a little bit, and hey, they've got it all figured out. They don't need you really,
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it looks like you got it going your way.
yeah, that's exactly
Yeah.
right.
So you start, you're doing these colts. You're basically working for more of a cowboy type,
Yeah.
and you're just getting on.
Yeah. Yeah.
And-
just getting on.
Okay, so at what point does it change from that to like, man, there's got to be a better way or some process to this or something?
Yeah.
Or what? How does that go from there?
So during that time, that place, Kiska Ranch, had a horse with a guy named Bronk Willoughby, who was a cutting horse trainer.
Mm-hmm.
And every once in a while, we would go check on the horse. He had a horse called Doc's Beefeater in training for Kiska Ranch. And we'd go over there and watch Bronk work that horse. I fell in love instantly. Instantly, I fell in love with that process, with all of the knowledge that he had. And I remember one day we were sitting out there, and I had actually went by myself over there to watch Bronk to try to gain knowledge, right? That's when I was starting to see that, hey, there's a different way to do things. And so I was sitting there watching Bronk one day, and he rode over to me, and I'll never forget this. He said, exactly what are you looking for? And I said, well, I want to be better. I said, I'm just trying to get knowledge, learn your secrets. And as soon as that word secrets come out of my mouth, Bronk says, there are no secrets. He said, it's all hard work.
Yeah.
And so you probably, most of us don't realize, especially when we're young, it's a process. You're not going to turn into Bronk Willoughby the next day. You're just not. And so you gain that knowledge, and you gain that knowledge, and you build and you build and you build your knowledge, and knowledge is everything. Mm-hmm. I had an Australian tell me one time that Johnny, gain all the knowledge you can. Knowledge is no burden to carry around. Mm-hmm. I've remembered that.
And no one can take it away from you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you go through, and you pick up stuff like that. I can remember the important lines that somebody had told me from 100 years ago. Now, I might not be able to remember where I had lunch yesterday at all, but I can remember, there's certain things that just hit your heart. Mm-hmm. And when that hits your heart, you'll remember it for sure.
What do you think made you accepting to that knowledge? We talk about people that they may ask you a question, but then immediately go into what they know.
Right.
So what made you different from that, you think, either growing up or the people you were around? Was there an influence that clicked in your head and you were like, okay, I'm not going to be maybe jealous or arrogant to all these other people that are better than me? Rather than that, I'm going to switch gears. I'm going to listen to them and shut my mouth.
Yeah. So as a young guy, and especially the way I came up, is that when you were in the presence of people with real knowledge that had real talent, that you recognize that, and you're just better off to shut your mouth and listen, right? Mm-hmm. And I recognized that early on, and I took and went to Bronx as much as I could. and then that ranch sold out, right? So I had to move back to Joplin and lived there in Joplin for a little while. I can't remember exactly what I'd done, but probably 6 months or a year. And then I decided this ain't working for me. I think I was breaking colts, but just on my own, right?
Just from anybody in the public.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah, and really didn't have the ability to do that because I couldn't take those colts anywhere, So anyway, I decided, hey, I am going to go to Texas, and I'm going to drive around down there until I find some cutting horse trainer that will give me a job, let me apprentice under him. So I took off and went to Texas, and thank God I had a wife that, she would have followed me anywhere. Mm-hmm. But I took and went down to Texas and crossed over from Oklahoma there into Texas and went to Gainesville, Texas. Mm-hmm. And there was a guy named Teddy Johnson. I'll never forget Teddy. He was such a good guy and a great guy to work for. Mm-hmm. And so Teddy, he was always looking for talent, right? Or you didn't even have to be talented. He was looking for bodies to put on horses. and so he hired me, and we moved my family down there. I had 2 little girls, and there was a bunch of boys staying in a mobile home down there. And after 2 or 3 days we were living in a little bitty apartment there, and after 2 or 3 days, or close to a week there, I'm busting my butt. I made up my mind. I'm going to be the first one there, mm-hmm. and the last one to leave. Mm-hmm. And so Ted, he saw that. Excuse me.
It's okay. Yeah.
So he saw that, and he moved those boys out of that.
Let's get the good one in the better place.
Yeah. He moved me and my family in there.
Oh, okay, so you went there with your whole family.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and he had a little apartment, mm-hmm. and that's where we stayed. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't 3 or 4 days. He moved us into the big mobile home.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And so, how old are you at this time?
Right now?
No. At Teddy's there.
So I'm probably 29, something like that. Not too much. Mm-hmm. Not too much into. I think the job there at Kiska lasted about a year and a half, something mm-hmm. like that. So I spent that time there at Teddy's, and Teddy hooked me up. I worked. I think it was probably 2.5, 3 years for Teddy. Him treating me like gold, just because I would work. Mm-hmm. And
he appreciated a good employee.
Yeah, I think so. And I think we all do,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And I think there's not one guy in this room, and hey, I'm sitting in some talented guys right here. I'm serious. I have a respect for everybody in this room. That's Jordan Shore and Jason Cook.
Yeah. And
you guys have worked hard, but you're talented too. So
I don't know how talented we are, but we try to work a little bit.
Yeah. Hard work outweighs the talent, maybe.
Yeah. I think Jordan and I, when it came to talent life, I don't know how many things I can attest for that I'm like, man, I just did this and I'm good at it. And I know Jordan played sports, ran track, ran cross country, and played basketball, and we're both not going to quit. But
yeah, I tell everybody I meet so they remember my name. I said my dad named me after Michael Jordan, but he was real disappointed when he watched me play. He probably didn't know that, but that's what I tell people.
But yeah, and hard work is appreciated. I picked employees over the years, and Blake fortunately would let me do that because I had to work with him. And I'd have people say, "Well, how do you fire people?" I said, "Well, I never had to."
Yeah.
I would always try to be very careful because I had the ability to be careful.
Right.
And if I was behind the gun and had to hire, it might be different. But I always was fortunate enough to have the ability to pick people, and I've always had great guys working for me.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been just great.
They're easy to spot.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
They really are. They're easy to spot.
Yeah.
One thing is they'll be asking questions.
Yeah.
Make sure that they're doing it right. Make sure they don't get into that. Well, this is what I do.
Yeah.
So if you got somebody listening and wanting knowledge, those guys will make good hands.
Yeah. Kelsey's in a situation where she's around a lot of people that are learning too.
Yeah.
And it's so funny just by one or two words that you use when you respond to somebody that's telling you, you know, how to do something,
right,
can make a huge difference on how they want to help you.
Yeah.
Whether you're saying, I know, or, okay, or didn't think about it that way, but I'm going to try that. Different things like that,
right,
where if you say it like you already know the answer, then, to people, they're like, okay, well, either I don't need to help them or they sound pretty arrogant, so I'm not going to. And it's just the words you're using to do that. And it's crazy. Well, and I'm glad Teddy was able to recognize somebody that works hard, and that says a lot about an employer too.
Yeah.
To find somebody like that and then really try to help that person along.
Yeah.
Like that's the good horse that you want to have your butt in the saddle on.
Right.
Not the one that's really not wanting to learn at all.
Yeah.
So it's like way more worth his time. And then he spreads his knowledge through you.
Yeah.
So you picked up quite a bit from him.
Teddy was a really good hand. He'd won the AQHA World a couple of times, and he was a good hand and a super nice human being. And again, that ranch that he worked for at that time sold. And so I was headed, after a couple of years of working for Teddy, I was headed back home again. Or when I say home, Joplin area. I went to Joplin area and started trying to train cutting horses, and even got to show a little bit, in the 3,000. Back then it was a 3,000 novice. Got to show a little bit in the 3,000 novice, and still I showed probably for a few years there, and I wasn't happy. I wasn't happy with the way I was progressing. And I'm thinking to myself, I need to find somebody that has won and done a bunch. And so at that time, I just decided, well, I'm going to go back to Texas again and look for somebody. But this time I kind of knew where, it wasn't just that they could ride cutting horses. I was looking for the guy.
And I think I heard you tell me one time, what you were doing when you come back, you were in that 70 to 71.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
You're looking for the 73, 74, 75.
Right.
And that might not seem like a lot to people.
Yeah.
But there's a big difference there. It's kind of like being in the NBA and then being an elite player in the NBA.
Right.
You've made it and you're a professional basketball player, but then being on the All-Star team's a whole different level.
Right. Yeah, that's exactly right. And that's the guy that I was looking for to go to. I was going to go, and I was going to use the same method. I'm going to work for that guy. I'm going to be the first guy to show up and the last guy to leave at night. And that's exactly what I'd done. And so that guy was Kobe Wood. And at that time, Kobe Wood had won over $5 million. Mm-hmm. Well, that was a pretty good lick back then.
That's a good lick now.
Yeah, for sure. And so Kobe, and I didn't even realize how hard that was, right? Mm-hmm. So Kobe, I went to Kobe's place and talked to Kobe, and he had a wonderful wife named Paula Wood, and and Paula was super nice to me, and at this time I had been separated from my wife, and so I'm down there in Texas, and again they hire me to go to work there.
And how old are you now?
Oh,
Like
gosh.
30 or so, or
No,
something.
I think.
This was later on.
Yeah, I think he's older than that.
Yeah, I want to say I was close to probably 45 or something like that.
So 45 years old, going back to work for another trainer.
That's exactly right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's not easy.
No.
Right? You got to be wanting something if you're going to go back to work for another trainer, and Kobe was, again, when I went to work there and he saw that I was going to be the first one there and the last one to leave, and I was always never questioned. If he'd told me put this saddle on backwards, I'd have put the saddle on backwards. I didn't question anything, I was like mold me, I'm clay, mold me. And so Kobe seen that, and Kobe was hauling a horse called Murata's Little Sioux for the AQHA, or not the AQHA, NCHA World at that time. And Kobe, he throw me in the truck too, and we would go, and so we were going to a lot of shows, and Kobe knew that I was going to do my job. He knew that he could be watching cattle. He'd be looking at cattle, talking to the other trainers about the cows and stuff like that. And I was going to be out back there loping. And I was going to give that mare, I tried to figure out exactly what she needed. And so that's kind of what got me in with Kobe, and he was really good to me. And we just I learned a lot from Kobe. Basically how to elevate those horses, because there is a method to elevate cutting horses. So I went through that and spent probably about 2-3 years with Kobe, and working there with Kobe, and it all worked out good. And I feel like I gained a lot of knowledge. Thing about knowledge is you can have all the knowledge in the world, and then you got to have people believe in you.
Yeah, well, you have to execute.
Yeah, exactly. But to do that, you need the horses.
You do.
So it's kind of a tight deal there, right? You got to have people that believe it's going to give you something that you can make into a Murata's Little Sioux, or a horse that is a big time horse, but you gotta have that horse to start with, and or have that horse that you can make into that, or at least go show, and everybody's watching you, and that will get you more horses, right? So I was pretty lucky about having a cutting horse business, and being able to have enough horses that I could hire guys, and that's where you come in, Jason Cook.
No, I'm not here yet. No, I'm not here yet. So we got from Kobe's. Didn't you go to Joe's?
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So there at Kobe's, when I was training for Kobe, thank you for reminding me of that.
Well, this is what I wanted to hear about Joe's place.
Well, Joe had a nice place, but it wasn't as nice as you'd think.
Yeah.
But it was nice, So, and we're talking about Joe Montana, the football player. And I was working for Kobe, and at that time, Joe had a horse with Kobe. That Cool Cat, I think, was that horse's name. And actually he had a couple of horses there, Papillon's Cat and That Cool Cat. And so Kobe would, when Joe would come down and watch his horses work, when I say come down, he'd come from California and over. This is after he retired from football, and he'd come down and look and see what was going on. And I met Joe. Man, I was excited about that. I was so excited about that because I had always been a Joe Montana fan. I loved watching him play. And so, and again, I'm thinking, boy, if I can just learn something from Joe Montana, not about cutting horses, but about competing. This guy knew how to compete. And I kept thinking, if I could learn what it takes to play at that level, maybe I can transfer that into cutting and try to play at that level, right? Well, so I wear a buckle now that's a Super Stakes buckle, right? That's a pretty big deal. And I won that on a horse called Custom Chrome Cat that we bought after I'd started there with Joe, and took that horse, and I took it to the futurity, but just wasn't quite good enough. And so then we went to the Super Stakes, which is there's like a Triple Crown deal, futurity, Super Stakes, and Derby. Excuse me. So
Pull that back up. Yeah. There you go.
So then we were there at the Super Stakes, and I win the limited Super Stakes, and I still wear this same buckle. I've won a lot of buckles since, but this is a buckle I still wear because, hey, it's Joe Montana that I won this for. So, yeah.
So tell me about your first interaction with Joe.
It would have been there at Kobe Woods.
Okay.
And Joe was super nice guy. Oh, I've been really lucky to be with super nice guys, right? And I think that was because of the level of their talent. These guys didn't need to impress you, but you can either be a nice guy or not. And I've known a lot of guys that weren't nice. So I think that, the deal is that if you're at that level, you think on a different way about things. That there's knowledge, you don't have to fight over it. There's plenty to go around, and I think that's what Joe was so nice. It's funny, when we went to buy a Custom Chrome Cat, we bought him from a guy named Gary Zolves, who's a really good cutting horse trainer there in Southern California, and we drove to Gary's place down there to try that horse, and Joe was really good about that whole thing, buying the horse. And he'd give $125,000 for that horse
Back then. Yeah.
back then, and so that horse was really talented, and I'm pretty sure Joe ain't going to be listening to this, but
we've made it if he did.
Well, if he does, look, I've got a little story to tell, right?
Okay. Yeah.
I'm going to tell it,
Okay.
and I may be in trouble for this,
Okay.
but so we get down there and we're buying the horse, and he's costing $125,000, and Joe says, telling Gary, he says, I'm going to have to write you a check for $15,000, and then I'm going to pay you the $110,000 in cash. He says, as far as my wife knows, the horse costs $15,000.
Oh, that's good.
So, yeah, I hope Joe don't. If you're listening to this, don't be mad.
More importantly, his wife.
Yeah. So that was. I'll never forget that story.
That's pretty funny. So I remember you mentioned something. So you're at Joe's place and he comes out for lessons.
Yeah.
Because he's got to learn how to pilot.
Right.
And stuff. And so tell me a little bit about the coachability and some things he said to you there.
Yeah. So in one of the very first lessons, I was talking to him, telling him, and one of the things that I'll never forget this sentence. He said, Johnny, he says, I am very coachable. I've been coached my whole life. So whatever you need me to do, you can tell me, and don't think that it's too small or anything. He said, I've been with quarterback coaches, and they're telling me how to hold my elbow. So as I'm throwing these passes, so he said, don't think anything's too small. You tell me everything.
And this is the attitude of a Hall of Famer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
I mean, arguably one of the best to maybe have ever thrown the football and played the game.
Yeah.
Arguably. And that's what got him there.
Yeah,
that
exactly.
hard work and talent. Yeah.
And, not once did he say, well, this is what I do.
Yeah.
So
looks like you got it going your way, Joe.
Yeah.
How long were you at Joe's?
About 2.5, 3 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful country. It was in California, right?
Yeah, it was in California.
Yeah.
He lived, it was called High Ridge Ranch. Mm-hmm. And it was kind of on the edge of, we wasn't very far from the ocean. Like we could drive to the ocean within a day or a few hours. Okay. So I was able to jump out on the highway there and go to the ocean and look at the ocean and see a lot of stuff while I was there.
All right.
So,
well, so we're into it 42 minutes.
Yeah.
And we're old.
Yeah.
So we're going to take a little break and move our bodies around a little bit. We're going to long trot a little bit here and take a bathroom break, and we'll be right back.
Thanks.
All right, we're back off of our old man break. One of us is. Are you 30 yet?
I turned 30 this year.
You turned 30 this year.
Yep.
I just turned 47. Johnny, you want to say how old you are?
Yeah.
You can if you want. You don't have to.
Well, I wished I was 30.
Yeah. But
I'm 69.
69.
Yeah.
And still riding horses every day. I sure hope I'm doing it at 69.
Yeah. But, I think, like I say, I'm blessed.
Yeah.
I've been blessed.
Yeah.
And to be able to do what I love.
Yeah. So we left off you're at Joe's, and you won that right there. I'm pointing up here to the wall, the limited open at Joe's.
Right.
On that horse.
Right.
And that was a pretty exciting time for you.
Yeah. Yeah, that was it was, and you don't know how big that is at the moment.
Yeah.
You just really don't. You're sitting there winning limited open super stakes, and you're thinking that, well, that's hardly anything, and then you if on the moment that you get past that and you're down the road some, you look back and think, well, that's a bigger deal than I thought, so
yeah. Mm-hmm. And then so you end up leaving Joe's, and so what happens after Joe's?
So when I left Joe's, I moved back to the area there, and when I say back, I'm talking about around Joplin there, mm-hmm. and started a business again, and just in between Joplin and Springfield, and at that time could get a better horse, mm-hmm. And I think that's what knowledge does for you. That's what apprenticing does for you, is that, people knew that I had experience at a high level, mm-hmm. and if they had something that was a little better, they wanted me to have it, mm-hmm. As far as getting horses to ride, things like that. Mm-hmm. So the funny thing is that us as trainers, we can be pretty good, but we got to have that partner. And that partner is horseflesh.
You do.
So,
and you kind of have to learn on the crappers.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, there's a place for every horse. I mean, we call them crappers or whatever, but there's a place for every horse. But you learn on those because you have to be more accurate to get more progress.
Right.
I guess you could say most of the time.
Yeah.
Progress in a positive way.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
But,
so you know, when you get to that stage, though, it's I look at the horses today. You know, man, they're pretty to watch. They're in the ground and they're falling all over themselves and all of that. Hey, you know, even back when I was doing cutting horses and training cutting horses, the trainers then would have pulled their face off, you know, because they didn't want them falling around and you know, rolling a turn and all of that. Well, they kind of allow that now, and so now it's kind of a different look than it was then, and now it's you just look at that and you think that's pretty good. You know, you watch that and boy, they can fall all over themselves on a cow. That's fun to watch.
It is. The horses are really changing.
Yeah.
So you come back from Joe's and you're back in the area around Southwest Missouri. Now, is this when you go overseas, or when do you go overseas?
When I went overseas, you're talking about to work? No, that happened after Teddy.
Okay.
Yeah.
That was after Teddy.
Yeah.
Okay.
So after Teddy, I went to Italy and worked in Italy training horses for a guy.
Okay.
And cutting horses or
cutting horses.
Okay.
Yeah. And so right after Teddy, actually Teddy got me that job. And so right after Teddy, I went to work for, the guy's name was Corrado, and nice guy. But the buildings are so different over there. You know, the indoor that he had was like concrete, all concrete, and just a small indoor pen, but it was all concrete. And so it was just, and you know, the cattle, we had a flag, and then the cattle was, he got like 10 or 12 Charolais cows. When I say cows, I mean beef size. And so, you know, I spent about 6 months over there doing that. And Corrado didn't realize how expensive that was, cutting horses for, you know. And then, because he thought, well, I've got an American trainer, everybody's going to fall all over themselves to bring me horses and all of that. Well, for one thing, there wasn't that many cutting horses in Italy. You know, there just wasn't. And we did take some outside horses, but yeah, it didn't take long for Corrado. I think his wife had a lot of help in getting rid of me over there.
Yeah. So that was after Teddy's, and you went to Kobe's. And so after Kobe's, you're back in Southwest Missouri. And so what year would have this been? Because you had been back a little bit. You had been back a while when I met you.
Yeah.
I believe.
Yeah.
And so you probably came back in what? Before 2000?
What's that say year-wise?
2001.
2001.
Okay.
So
yeah.
I was at Joe's in 2001, won this buckle, and then I probably worked for Joe another year, and we, you know, we had a great relationship, Joe and I, and took off and come back at that time.
Okay, so now you're back at Joplin.
Yeah, so I went to work for Frank Schaefer, and Frank had a horse called Billy Highgrow.
Yep.
And Billy Highgrow was pretty speedy and lots of horse, you know. And so we done pretty good on him through, we're talking now at a local level. And Billy was already trained when we got him. And so we took him and showed him basically at monthly shows, and we went to Texas, every once in a while down there and show Billy.
Yeah. And you're not very far from Carthage there at that time.
No.
And Carthage is pretty tough.
Yeah.
A lot of people didn't realize that Carthage was tough.
Right. I remember going to Carthage and I done good there, in the novice classes and stuff. And I just didn't have an open horse, but I had some pretty good novice horses. I won the novice there back then it was the 3,000 novice. I won that one year. I think I was reserving the 10,000 novice another year. And so just showing there at Carthage, they'd have one a month, something like that. And we would go and show there, and then we'd halt to other places too. But you didn't. The boys that wasn't from there or hadn't been to there, they'd be very highly surprised when they walked in there, and there was guys like Tommy Marvin, who has won the futurity. There's guys like several tons of guys that could kick your tail any day of the week.
And Michael was just getting started there.
Michael Cooper was.
Kara was there.
Kara was there.
Yeah.
All those, we call them big time trainers now, and they are big time trainers. Yeah. And those guys they've got talent, and they've had horses. You gotta, you can have all the talent in the world, but if you don't have the horses, you're not going to get that chance.
Yeah.
So.
And so somewhere around in there, you'd been back and you were showing, then you had Red Hotalina and W.R. Smart and Hickory and all those horses.
Yep.
And then my wife at the time, Amanda, she went to work for you.
Yes.
She actually, had called you. We had came back from Arizona, and I think we seen an ad in the Big Nickel.
Yeah, I don't doubt that.
I want to say.
Yeah.
Wanting someone to ride horses and a loper.
Yeah.
And she came up, and she went to work for you. And I think she was with you a while. I was starting colts back over by Fairview, Missouri.
Yeah.
And she worked for you for a little bit before I ever, had the opportunity.
Right.
I know she had told you that she had a husband that could start colts some.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I finally, she came home one day, and I still remember he said, if you'll bring one of your colts, you've got 30 days on up, come up and ride it, and he'll watch you.
Yeah.
We'll go from there. And I brought Pee Wee up, which belongs to Jimmy and Mandy Evans.
Yeah.
And I brought Pee Wee up, and a little sorrel colt, little cow bar, and I rode it. And you said, you broke him out? And I said, yeah. He said, well, you can start, but I'll pay you this much ahead. What you were going to do with me, you took outside horses in, whether it be futurity prospects or just regular riding. And you paid me so much ahead, it was probably not enough.
Yeah.
But you paid me so much ahead, and then you fed them and boarded them there at Frank's barn. And that's kind of how we got started.
Yeah.
And I know you thought we was kind of crazy how we got on him. And he said, you're not going to drive that horse? I said, no. He said, well, all right. You said, just whatever you think. It's your deal. And that's how it all started with. And I got to get on finally some better horses because you had Tiny.
Yeah.
And you had some others that were pretty good bred, and I wasn't used to those really good producing mares and producing studs, getting on nicer horses.
Yeah, we got a chance to start getting some better bred horses and all of that. And so, doing that, we were able to kind of secure a job in this area, getting horses in and training horses for people.
Mm-hmm. And I think I think I was there 2.5 years, and I think it was a record for the longest anybody'd worked for you.
You know why, Jason?
Why is that?
Because you had to work.
I remember you told me one time, you said, I don't think I've ever had anybody work for you this long, for you this long.
No, people will come, and after they get about 4 or 5 months of knowledge, they think that they can go jump out and go do it.
And that makes it hard for a trainer to want to invest in people.
That's true.
It does.
Yeah.
It does, because a lot of trainers go through so many people, and they're just like, why bother with investing? It's just a warm body. Treat them like that. But then you get people that's different every once in a while.
Right. And so hopefully you're going to find a Jason Cook or a Jordan Shore or somebody that you can invest in, and then someday you're looking and thinking, that I'm glad I done that. You know. So
well, that's what started our relationship, and so that's how we met and hit it off, and I basically would show up, and then she. My wife at the time, she worked for Johnie, and she was a loper and a lot better rider than I was then. She really ride a horse really well. Yeah. And she had been around the cutting.
Yeah. So Amanda was one of those people that was going to work her tail off. Mm-hmm. You just didn't outwork Amanda. Mm-hmm. And that's what you liked about, you look, all the young people, if you're out there listening and you want to get something done in the horse world, work. Mm-hmm. Work. Dedicate yourself, mm-hmm. and not just on an hourly basis, but don't think you're going to live 2 lives. You're going to live one life, and it's all going to be work. Mm-hmm. So if you're willing to commit to that, then you can make it in just any horse discipline. Mm-hmm.
So that carried on until I end up leaving there, and then you trained cutters for a while there. Then I think you ended up moving. I went back over by Fairview, I believe, and then then you got into EXCA.
Yes.
Okay. So let's start there on how that got transpired, and then I'm looking right over here at some back tags,
Calgary Stampede.
Yeah, Calgary Stampede stuff. So why don't you talk to us a little bit about the EXCA?
I feel like you're kind of the pioneer around this area. You're the one that made it big.
Yeah.
Well, that again, I had customers behind me. Mm-hmm. Because I could take my knowledge of riding, I'd been in cutting horses and could train a horse basically, and I got hooked up with some really good customers. Pat Keck had bought a horse that I got started on, and that was a really good horse, and Pat had also bought some more horses and even some futurity horses. I think one of those buckles over there is a reserve world champion futurity in the EXCA. Mm-hmm. And I've given several buckles away. So there was several more buckles there. Part of them cutting and part of them EXCA. But yeah.
Yeah, so you were in that, and then you went to Calgary a few times.
Yeah.
It looks like, what, three?
Three times.
3 times, yeah.
And you had to be invited. Mm-hmm. They invited 10 people a year, right, out of the XCA to come to Calgary Stampede and compete. And, boy, that was a great memory, going there. And I remember and boy, Calgary obstacles weren't like the weekend obstacles. Those bridges that you crossed, they were about 6 foot tall and no sides on them, and about 4 foot wide, maybe 3 foot wide. And if you've ever ridden horses across the obstacles, you know that things can go bad at any moment. Mm-hmm. And if you're up 6 foot tall, and they fall off of that, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
More than likely.
Yeah.
So.
And you were in that for several years.
Yeah,
you
probably.
were pretty active.
Yeah. So I loved the people in extreme cowboy racing. Craig Cameron runs that deal, and Craig does a great job. And so the only thing was that I totally did not agree with is that those people, time is a big factor. You could change your whole placing position by how fast you are, right? Well, I didn't agree with running horses across bridges. Just did not agree with that. A lot of times the horsemanship stuff was not existent. It was who was fastest across the bridge and all of that. So that's when I decided to do something else.
Right. Which brought you to the ranch horse shows.
Yeah.
And the not introduction, but back into cows, but maybe in a little different manner. Because we have the boxing and we also have the down the fence.
Yeah.
And that's something that you kind of switched over to. And the ranch horse shows, as all of us three here that sit here, we show in those extensively, and everybody I've talked to on my podcast so far agrees. If it wasn't for the ranch horse shows, the horse show world would have been in a lot of hurt. Now the top stuff in the NRHA, NCHA would probably still be going good,
right?
But it has really saved the local horse shows.
Yeah.
But before we get started on that, we had a little hiccup, and I think we're approaching the anniversary of when I got a phone call from you.
Yeah.
And so I was in Clinton, Arkansas at the chuck wagon races, and you called me.
Yeah.
And you want to tell us about that. I still remember this day where I was sitting and the call.
Well, I don't remember.
I do. You called me and told me you had and had a brain tumor.
Yeah.
And because it's Labor Day, it's encroaching upon Labor Day, and I know because I was at the wagon races, and I normally leave on like Wednesday, which would be a few days from now, because it's Sunday right now, and so it had to have been almost to the day, and I don't know what year that was. I don't remember.
I think that would have been somewhere around 2019,
Has it
2020.
Been that long?
Yeah.
Yep. So it was pre-COVID.
Yeah.
So it'd probably been 19.
Yeah.
It'd have been. So we're 5 years.
Yeah.
5 years almost to the day.
Right. And honestly, looking back, that's a process in itself. And I just kind of throwed myself on God's mercy and went. I'd done exactly what I always do. I'm going to do what you tell me when you tell me. And I'm going to be the best patient you ever had.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
yeah.
Starting out, we were new to that, right? Me and my middle daughter, and so we're going to Bolivar to oncologist.
And what brought it up is you was having some trouble with balance on your horses, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
And feeling sick to my stomach. So I was feeling pretty sick to my stomach, and I was having issues with balance and stuff like that. And I thought, man, maybe I've got a bug or something like that. And so I just went to urgent care right over here, and he talked to me and gave me some medicine for the nausea, but he said you probably ought to go get an MRI. And so I did, and they found spots on my brain, and they said, well, we see the spots, but we don't know what it is, so we're gonna have to go in. And so within hours, they had me in there in the emergency room, not the emergency
The
room,
OR.
but the hospital. And you see my dent here. I
Yes.
call it my dent,
Yeah.
and it's a kind of a big dent, and it kind of looks like that I got kicked by a horse there, doesn't
Well,
it?
that's a good story.
Yeah.
You were spurring a bronc.
Yeah, exactly.
A bull.
So I think the guy that done that was a really good surgeon. And why this scar is so ugly, I have no idea. But I think it was a joke, right?
Yeah.
He knew that I rode horses,
Yeah.
and so he put it in a little horseshoe shape.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, no one ever sees it because I rarely see you with your hat off.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
And there's no reason for that other than I have a lack of hair.
yeah. So you go in and you're going through this with your daughter, your middle daughter.
Yes.
Yeah.
So she's hauling me back and forth to the guy in Bolivar, and then I get switched over to an oncologist in Springfield, there at the hospital, and so he starts putting me on chemo, but he checks me in for chemo. The other guy had me coming to his office and doing chemo. And this guy starts checking me in. Dr. Holden is his name, and he starts checking me in to the hospital. So I'll be in the hospital 3 or 4 days, taking the chemo, and then out for a week, and then back in for another week. So that was a process that took it was about 14, 15 weeks of in and out, right? Getting that done.
And so how long was this process? And I know at one point in time you told me, didn't they send you up north somewhere, and didn't they kill all the white blood cells in your body?
Yeah. So that was a stem cell transplant.
Okay.
So they actually sent me to St. Louis, Missouri. I was in the hospital for 5 weeks in St. Louis. And my middle daughter, she'd come and see me, but she drove me up there, and then they kind of left me there. So I was in the hospital in St. Louis by myself. Not that I needed anybody, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah.
So anyway, I was in the hospital for 5 weeks and getting this stem cell transplant, and part of that was they take you in, they run. It's kind of like a dialysis deal. So they got you hooked up to one machine that's pumping the blood in you, and then another machine that's separating as it comes out. It's separating the stem cells out of the blood, and then, or plasma, I guess it's called, and then it goes back around and goes back in you after the stem cells are separated out. So I had to go through that process, and then a few weeks later, not a few weeks, I'm sorry, but like a week later, they put them stem cells back in you.
Okay.
So the stem cells are the thing that really gave you a chance to beat that cancer for good, So,
And so you went through all that. Of course, you couldn't ride then.
no,
And so you were off riding for a while, and then you got recovered from that, and it's been 5 years.
Yeah.
And you're doing 100.
yep, feels pretty good.
Yeah, it feels pretty good. And so now we'll go back to, learning this new deal. You're wanting to do the ranch horse shows. You're doing them. You're not wanting. You're currently doing them. You have been for a while, and you're entertaining the fence stuff.
Yeah.
And doing a little bit of that, and so talk to us a little bit about that.
So again, the working cow horse is the hardest thing I've ever done a horseback, and I've done some tough stuff a horseback, right? But the working cow horse and getting it right is the hardest thing I've ever done a horseback. because you got to be, if you're gonna figure eight a cow, you better be right in his back pocket or right up on his shoulder to get that done. Well, that doesn't look very hard when they're doing it right, but it's hard. It's super hard. And so, that was a learning curve in itself, is being in the position that you need to be to get that done. And anyway, I've had some good luck. Last year, I was I had a good paint horse that we were 7th in the world in the boxing part of that, and then also I was made the finals in the world, in the paint world, in the obstacles. So my obstacle from the EXCA, doing those obstacles let me win some there in the paint horse world. Mm-hmm. And before that, I was 5th in the buckskin world too. Mm-hmm. Their Ranch Pleasure, mm-hmm. I think it was something like that. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What were you able to take from the cutting into your working cow horse? Like, what were some of the things that you were like, man, I'm glad I did a lot of this in the cutting to be able to.
Well, so if you're boxing, it's pretty much, the boxing part of that is pretty much cutting. Mm. You're gonna try to get to the wall and beat that cow there, and then come out of there with the cow, and so it's just pretty much cutting just against the wall. Mm-hmm. And we used to train our horses that way in the cutting. We'd work a cow on the fence. When you were short on cows and all of that, you'd put one cow in the pen, and pretty much you'd be boxing them all day. So
yeah,
that was good experience for the boxing that I do now.
Yeah. What was the biggest difference when you went to go to the working cow horse? Like what aspect of it was just totally different from what the cutting was that you learned you needed to do?
So that's a tough deal. When you're cutting, you think that's pretty tough, and it's hard, and it is hard to get right. But there's more showmanship, I think, in cutting that because you time things right. So you ride into that herd and you got your help, and they're zeroed in. It's not like help on the weekend, where they're. I think Jason told me a story this morning about having a herd help that was right out in the way. Well, that's what happens when you go to places that the guys don't understand. But I had some really good help when I was cutting. Michael Cooper and Karen and Scott Brewer, Kara's husband, all those guys would help me.
Nick Odell,
yeah, they were all helping me, and when I was cutting here, so you're kind of thinking what you need. Well, in the boxing and going down the fence, the boxing is just, it's not anything more than cutting. I use it almost 100% of my cutting knowledge to box. But when you start going down the fence, that's a whole different animal. So that's exactly the way I look at that.
Mm-hmm. So what do you, you're going to keep pursuing that, aren't you? Keep pursuing the ranch horse shows. That's your main deal right now?
Yeah, I love the ranch horse shows. It's the EXCA had the great people. They were super nice, fun. Mm-hmm. But the ranch horse shows, you'll show 4 times. Ranch Pleasure, ranch reining, ranch riding, and
trail.
Mm-hmm. And now some of those shows have cutting, so you're liable to get to cut.
Well, yeah, Jordan, when he was putting those shows on down at U of A, you guys had good turnouts for all the jackpot cutting. Mm-hmm. and the ranch roping.
Yeah. Yeah, it was. And people liked the cutting portion of it.
Yeah.
So, no, they treated it sometimes like a working cow horse class where it was like, let's go out and go fast. And it's not quite that way.
So you're the big cutter here. So someone is going to start their horse on a flag or a cow. What's the first step? Providing your horse is broke.
Yeah.
Forward, backwards, left, and right.
That's a big step.
Yeah, that's a big step. So say your horse backs up pretty good and you can roll him over his hocks and all this. What do you tell someone that wants to get into that if they had to do it kind of without maybe a mentor or someone coaching them?
Yeah.
Because it's about timing.
Yeah,
it's a little different because it's the cow relationship with the horse versus reining is those horses they got to be broke enough we can pick up and help them, I feel, but then when we put our hand down, we got to let them do what they need to do, show them where they need to be, then leave them alone. Yeah. So what's the first deal you tell someone?
So I'll get to that in just a minute. Mm-hmm. But the first thing I want to get to is that you got to trust your horses more. Train them and trust them, right? So if now there's an obstacle that I have that's a 16-foot long bridge that's 12 inches wide, mm-hmm. and there's no way when I start to ride a horse across that bridge, there's no way to hold that horse on that bridge. Mm-mm. You're talking about a horse that's wider than the bridge. Mm-hmm. And so as you're walking across that, you've got to train them to be accountable for their feet, mm-hmm. right? So the best way I've found to do that is if I start across, they step off, I back up to the beginning. Uh-huh. I start across, they step off, I back up to the beginning. And after a little while, you'll be surprised at how accountable you can get a horse for his feet. They learn that if they'll keep their feet on that and they go all the way across and we get off at the other side, I'll pet on them. I'll just sit there and rub on them, mm-hmm. right? So then come back around, we do it again, and they step off, I'll do it again. We'll start that process over. Pretty soon, I've got horses out there now that I can take them out. I haven't done that in maybe months with the horse, and I can point them at that 16-foot long, 12-inch wide bridge, mm-hmm. and I guarantee I'd bet $100 that they'll go right straight across and never lose a foot. Well, guess what? I think the turnaround, the spin is a little mm-hmm. bit like that too, right? So if you're going to teach a horse to spin, you're going to have to make that horse accountable, because mm-hmm. you can't nursemaid them horses if you're going to win anything anyway. You can't nursemaid those horses in that spin and have and win anything. Let's say. So I think and in the cutting it's you put your hand down, mm-hmm. and when you put your hand down, that horse has to be trained. Mm-hmm. You can't fake that. Mm-hmm. It ain't going to work, mm-hmm. So I feel like that you teach that horse to be accountable, and in that situation, it doesn't take abuse or beating or anything else. You can do that, and you can do it in a way that makes sense to the horse and keeps him not afraid of you. Mm-hmm. You've got that horse, he's trusting of you. You've made him work a little harder in a couple of situations, but so in back to the flag, right? Mm-hmm. So I start that, and I'm handling that horse at first on the flag. That means I'm picking him up and backing him, bringing his nose through that turn with mm-hmm. that flag, and get to the other end, stop and back him and bring his nose, and then I start letting him do it, mm-hmm. right? Now then, first time I go over there, he's waiting on me. Mm-hmm. He's waiting on me to back him up and do mm-hmm. it. But if in that case, I'll hustle him a little bit, So to get that, him thinking that, oh, this is my job. I need him to think, oh, this is my job. Then I need him to go over there, hit that ground, and I like to have him go over there, hit that ground, and draw. Start them steps back, whether that cow's asking for it or not. So that's kind of the way that starts on a flag. And I've done a lot of training on a flag. I haven't always been in situations where, you got 50 head of cows standing out there and you can go out and pull, and you got a truckload of cattle coming next few days that use them up, and you got them other cows coming. That's not been my situation.
Yeah,
my situation's been we got 12 cows. Yeah. let's be careful with them.
Yeah, I seen a guy at a show the other day. He had it's about as long as his couch. It's got wood handles on each side, and you stand in it.
Yeah, I've seen those too.
And he had his kids in it. They needed to get ready for the herd work. And he had his kid get in it. It looks like a cow from the side. It's like a big sack. And he ran them out there. Now, the other horses in the pen weren't real fond of it. But he ran it out there, and he had that girl going back and forth, and he's working that horse on it.
Yeah. Yeah, I've seen those too.
Yeah, it's pretty funny.
They've got some of them where they're like almost a 3D of a cow, where they can get in that cow, the kids or wife.
Yeah,
if your wife, I'm sure you can get your wife to do that, Jason.
Yeah, well, no, I just put her on the bicycle. If you'll take a bicycle, an exercise bike, and take weed eater cord,
yeah,
and you can run that around it, and that'll keep you from working a horse too fast.
Yeah,
either that or get divorced. But I remember back when I worked for you a long time ago, we took the flag off and put an ink pen cartridge on it, which is about like a straw.
Yeah,
and you were really fine tuning. You had those horses cutting that ink pen. Cartridge.
Yeah,
and what we did was we took the flag off, ran the string through the empty ink pen, and then put some stoppers or some knots or something on the end of it, and you were kind of working on that a little bit.
Well, it just makes them zero in a little more, because then they really have to be watching, don't they? They can't catch that out of the corner of their eye. They've got to be really zeroed in on that.
Yeah.
So
You, I think, operate like that as a person too. Because I remember the first time I worked a flag with you, because you were probably the first time I'd ever been on a cutting horse. Jason had took me up there to the place in Diamond that you were at, and you'd put me on one of yours. Yeah. It was probably a plug, but I thought it was, a futurity winner for sure. But, when
I probably thought that too.
Yeah. But you're not quick to just do that. You got to do this. You would let somebody work. And I think Jason has got a lot of that from you too, where you let them get out there, see what they're wanting to do, and then, correct it and bring them back to where they need to be. Yeah. So I would see that with you. And even when you helped me at U of A, because I haven't got to ride with you a lot, but the few times I did, you're talking about this with horses, but I also see it with people. You tend to do the same thing, hence the looks like it's going your way kind of deal, for those that just really don't want to do it. But it's do you think that way too, like when you give lessons, like with Joe or anything?
Well, Joe was a special human being in that he had tons of talent, whether it was riding a horse or whether it was throwing a football. He worked at it, but he understood it takes work. He didn't just come to the pen and jump in the saddle and expect to ride like Kobe Wood or whoever. He knew that he had to start at the same level that Johnie Clem had to start at back a few years ago. So that's the thing about Joe. A lot of people don't realize I've been doing this for, I don't know what,
Yeah.
Long
A
time.
few years.
Yeah.
A few years.
We don't want to tell your age.
We already done that, but
Yeah.
but I've been doing this for a few years, and what I know is that you never get there.
Never.
You're never going to be the guy you want to be.
Never.
And I don't care how many championships you won, and I've been lucky enough to win a few, but I think that what you learn is that we're all at a level, and we're all on the journey. I got a tattoo on my neck for the people out there that says life is a journey. And I believe that life is a journey, and that's going to be your career training horses. That's going to be your journey with God, and you're just going. It's a journey, and you've just got to keep showing up every day, and be the first guy there and the last guy to leave.
Yep. Yeah, and it's been a journey indeed. I mean, ever since I met you, we've stayed in contact. I don't think we've ever lost contact.
Right.
We're well, both of you guys are up here at Springfield now, but I'm about an hour and 15 away.
Yeah.
And Jordan, Johnny said he'd ride with you, but you get up too early.
That's true. that is the truth.
Yeah.
I look out and I see the arena lights on out there in the big indoor, and I look out there and I know that if the lights are on, Jordan's here. But I don't get out there any sooner.
Well, I know what's going on in his mind. He probably looks out there and goes, "Well, looks like it's going his way."
He probably said he said I was 29 once.
Yeah. Before long I'll probably be throwing pebbles at your window. Hey, could you help me?
Yeah.
Well, you would be one guy that I'd get out of bed for, Jordan.
Yeah. But well, you've had a big impact on both of us here. Jordan might not spend a lot of time around you, but I was around him quite a bit. We had a lot of interaction together, and we still do. And so we're pretty happy with what you've done for us. And I mean, there's a lot that you do and don't know from the business standpoint. We've had a lot of talks about the business standpoint, and you've got to be around a lot of successful horse trainers when you were down in Texas and different things and around here, but I try to pay attention to what you say and then use it. And I've had you ask me before, says, "Well, who told you that?" I said, "Well, you did."
Yeah. That's pretty good.
That sounds like me.
But yeah, and Jordan, he's up here closer around you now, and hopefully you guys can get your sleep schedules on.
Yeah. When the wintertime rolls around, it's a little colder in the morning. That might change.
Yeah. I hope it does, because
Yeah.
I want to chase your knowledge.
Yeah.
No, I need yours. Like I said, you were you put me on the first cutting horse that I'd been on, and you probably didn't even know that, know, and then it just grew from there, and I learned a lot from him, who learned from you. So indirectly, like, you spread a lot more knowledge than you probably think you do. So
Planting seeds.
Yeah.
And sometimes we don't realize it.
So actually, I did know that was your first cutting horse.
Oh, just by watching, huh? Yeah. It was that memorable, huh? I'm sure it was. It was probably terrible.
I remember the first one I got on was down in Texas. There was a guy that used to work for the 4-6s named Keith Moore, and I showed up, and I look back and I'm like, gosh, what did this old guy think of me? He was like 70 at the time.
Yeah.
But he'd probably forgot more
Right.
than I'll ever know, and he put me on one that won about 30,000.
Yeah.
And he had quite a little cutting pen. It was just a little deal, and I got out there, and he said, "Now you just push on that horn," and I hadn't met you yet. And push on that horn when that horse turns, and keep your eye on. Don't quit watching that cow. And I'm telling you, I rode every inch of that horse. I smelt its ears, spurred it in the tail. I was all over it. When we got done, I'm proud. I look at him because I didn't pull off. I'm like, "Well, what'd you think?" He said, he laughed, big guy. He laughed. He says, "You must be pretty stout, because I don't know how you stayed on."
Well, that is you know, it's like if you got knowledge, you're gonna figure that out real quick. But if you have no knowledge and you don't, because you ain't never been on a cutting horse, I mean, you can watch it, and all three of us know this, right? We can watch that 100 times on YouTube, but it ain't gonna be the same way or same thing when you step in that stirrup.
No, you can watch boxing too. But I promise you, there's no feel in your chair.
Yeah.
But when you get in the ring, there's feel.
Yeah.
And what you're supposed to do when your nose hurts and your eyes are watering, you forget about that because the feel.
Yeah.
And in a horse, when that horse goes to making those powerful moves, and they told you to push on that horn, but right now it's 6 moves ahead of you.
Yeah.
And you're just trying to survive.
Right.
And it has to slow down. The more you do it, the more it slows down.
Yeah.
And then you can end up processing it more in your mind. That's what I think. And as far as getting better, you know, we're all ignorant about things.
Yeah.
And none of us were born, all three of us, none of us was born knowing how to do this.
Right.
And it's okay to be ignorant.
Yeah.
But I don't feel like it's okay to stay ignorant.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And there's pride that gets in our way, that we don't seek help, and that gets in a lot of people's way. It's been the case with me and in my life too. We all deal with it. And then there's the second thing, that pride keeps you from seeking counsel. And then the second part of that is, okay, you're not prideful, you're seeking counsel, but you don't know how to seek good counsel.
Yeah.
And that's tough.
Well, that is right, because you can get information anywhere, and not all of it's good.
No, especially now. I mean, you can get a lot of information.
Yeah.
But the best thing is to get with people who made the circle. You know, when I met you, you'd been on a circle, big circle. You'd had a lot of life experiences,
right?
Not just with the horses, but interacting with clients.
Yeah.
And the business part of it. I mean, you had a lot of experience with that, and so it's more than just turning a horse or stopping a horse.
Right.
That's just, I mean, that's just a little tip of the iceberg.
Yeah, that you can get on YouTube.
Yeah.
But paying those bills, paying those guys working for you, you know, there's a certain amount of business sense that you have to have, and you've got to develop that. And
like we spoke on the break, all three of us, we didn't come from business families.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, we come from people who they work and they get a check at the end of the week.
Right.
I mean, and there's a lot of other knowledge out there on the business aspect of it, and that's tough.
Yeah.
It's really hard, especially in the horse industry, because you not only have to be a good horseman, you have to try to become a better business person too.
Right.
In order to reach more people.
Yeah.
And just got to have an open mind and a thick skin to keep trugging away.
Well, you know, and you can't listen to everybody. You just can't. And because some of the people telling you that you're never going to make it, you know, they're already not very good, you know, and they try to hold the people around them down so they can be better, you know, so they can act better or whatever. I'm not that guy. I'm that guy that takes pride in Jason Cook and Jordan Shore. You know, that I think there was some little part of my knowledge that helped them become who they are.
Absolutely. We're just a hodgepodge of other trainers that have influenced us and helped us.
Right.
You know, and we got to keep learning. It's evolving. We've already talked about the horses. We haven't talked about the training evolving. I mean, it's evolving too. But I think I notice you probably have a pretty small circle.
Yeah.
You don't have a giant circle.
Right.
You're a little more of an introvert. I'm definitely
you noticed that.
I'm a little more of an introvert. I mean, I can stand up and teach and stuff like that. But I mean, you're liable to see either one of us at a show, and we might be sitting in the corner up there on the bleachers watching.
Yeah.
We're there.
Yeah.
But we're not there being a social butterfly.
Right.
I leave that up to my wife.
It's funny you say that.
Yeah.
The girl that I'm dating now is that girl.
Yeah, the social butterfly.
Social, she ain't never met a stranger in her life, I promise you.
Yeah.
And she's laughing and going on with people, and she knows the way I am, right? And everybody knows the way I am.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be the friendliest guy when you walk up to me.
Really?
So you may walk up to me, and it's not that I mean to be that way.
Yeah.
It's that life's made me that way. You know.
Yeah.
Let me tell you what I know. You know that's I've seen that a bunch.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of makes me step back a step and look at you, And I remember Bill Marshall, which was the first cutting horse trainer that I apprenticed under, right? Mm-hmm. So Bill Marshall, he was that way, and he was probably late 60s, when I went to work for Bill. Mm-hmm. And he hadn't never won anything or done anything. I think he may have won, something in a small association or something like that. But Bill was that way. Mm-hmm. He's gonna give you the old eyeball when you were talking to him, because he realized what I didn't realize when I went to work for Bill, is that, hey, this is a big world, and you're going to cross a lot of people, and not all of them care about what you think, So I think that's a situation there is let you experience life. Life's a journey, So you experience life and go through life, and hopefully you have God in life, and make him a big part of that. I think he's always been a big part of it for me, regardless of how I acted. Mm-hmm. And so, so I think that's super important. Yeah. And I think that, it's a deal of being able to, he's got your back, and you're going to need that if you're a horse trainer.
Yeah. You're going to need a lot.
Yeah. So you need that. I got your back.
Yeah. Well, I sure appreciate you sitting down with us. Like I said, I've been looking forward to this for a while, and I came up the last time, and guess what? I wasn't prepared. I forgot a little piece of equipment, and Jordan's dad and I had drove up here. Yeah. And I was like, are you kidding me? I forgot this piece of equipment. So we ended up, I think, going to Bass Pro and driving back home.
Hey, they didn't ask me to go to Bass Pro.
No, but no, I do appreciate it, and I've been looking forward to it for a long time, and I'm always learn a little bit more about somebody, even though I've known you for quite a while.
Right.
And I enjoy hearing different sides to things and more in-depth things that I didn't know before. But Jordan, you have anything you want to say?
Yeah, I mean, for a 30-year-old, wanting to be in this industry, what's the best piece of advice you can give? I know, or pieces. I know hard work is probably, that's one you really hit home. But
yeah, I think if I, there's a couple of things. Be willing to work hard and seek knowledge. And I think if you can do those two things and put those together and be earnest about both of them, I feel like that a person has a good chance. But if you lack one, you're not going to go probably very far unless you're really lucky. So some people are born into situations where they're just really lucky.
Yep.
But I think anybody can do anything if they will work hard and seek knowledge.
Yep, I sure agree. Yep. Well, I guess we'll sum it up here. And I see my battery's almost dead. And thank you, Jordan, for coming by.
Yeah,
and,
Jordan, thank you.
Well, thanks for having me.
Yeah, and we're going to sure have more of them with maybe both, or who knows, one of the two on here. We never know who's going to be on the podcast. But anyway, if you guys do have any other guests or comments or anything, you can leave that in the comments part on any of your apps that you're listening to this on. If you need to text or email, just get a hold of us, and we'd be glad to hear from you and hear your comments, concerns, questions, any of that. But until next time, we'll talk to you later.